They want you to believe that water is a monthly subscription, a commodity owned by a corporation, a liquid debt delivered through a pipe that they control. They tell you that if the rain stops, your independence dies. They are lying. While the world is fighting over vanishing reservoirs, I am harvesting a hidden ocean right above our heads. It costs $0. It requires zero electricity, and it's a technology so effective, the utility industry spent the last century making sure you forgot it existed. Welcome to the Incan Air Well. Welcome to the end of the water monopoly. To understand how to get free water, you first have to understand why you're paying for it. We live in a centralized reality. The system is designed to make you a customer of survival. They build massive dams, lay thousands of miles of toxic pipes, and treat your water with chemicals, all so they can send you a bill at the end of the month. This is what I call the water cartel. Their power doesn't come from the water itself. It comes from your belief that you cannot provide it for yourself. Their dominance relies on your ignorance of the environment around you. But look at the Incas. 500 years ago, in the high, arid peaks of the Andes, they didn't have pumps. They didn't have PVC. Yet they grew lush forests in places where it hasn't rained in months. How? They understood a fundamental law of the universe that modern science has conveniently pushed to the sidelines: atmospheric harvesting. There is more water in the air around you right now than in all the rivers on Earth combined. It is an invisible, floating ocean. Even in the middle of a drought in Texas or the deserts of Arizona, the humidity is there. It's a resource that is decentralized, untaxable, and infinite. The only reason you're not using it is that you've been trained to look down at the ground for water instead of looking at the physics of the air. If you were watching this, you probably saw my last video on the $1 copper coil. You saw how we can charge the soil with electricity to wake up the biology of our plants. But electricity is only half the equation. Life requires tension, and tension requires a medium. That medium is water, but not the chlorinated dead water from a city tap. Your plants want the pure, structured, distilled water of the atmosphere. Today, I am going to show you how to build a fountain from nothing but stones. We are going to build a device that sweats gallons of water every night while you sleep. We are going to reclaim our most basic right. Let's look at the physics of the invisible ocean. Imagine standing in the middle of a desert, feeling the scorching heat on your skin, believing you are dying of thirst. The truth is, you are actually standing in the middle of a reservoir. You just can't see it because it hasn't been called into a liquid state yet. To harvest this water for $0, we have to master one specific concept: the dew point. Air is like a sponge. The warmer the air, the more water it can hold. But every sponge has a limit. When the temperature drops, the sponge of the air begins to shrink. It can no longer hold the same amount of vapor. At a certain temperature, the dew point, the air is forced to surrender its moisture. It has no choice. It must vomit the water out. This is the exact same reason your cold glass of water sweats on a summer day. The glass isn't leaking, it's just colder than the air around it. It is acting as a magnetic anchor for the invisible water molecules. Now imagine if you could build a giant glass in your garden that stayed cold 24 hours a day using nothing but stones. This is what the ancients called an air well. The secret lies in thermal mass. Different materials react to heat in different ways. While the air heats up rapidly under the morning sun, high-density stones like basalt or heavy river rocks have a thermal lag. They stay cold long after the sun has risen. By stacking these stones in a specific geometric pyramid, a cairn, we create a massive surface area of cold anchors. As the warm, moisture-heavy air of the morning or evening passes through the gaps between these cold stones, a miracle of physics occurs. The air is shocked by the cold surface. It reaches its dew point instantly. It condenses, and it begins to drip. 1 drop becomes 10, 10 drops become a stream, and suddenly you have a self-filling fountain in the middle of a wasteland. The utility companies don't talk about this because you can't put a meter on a pile of rocks. You can't tax the condensation of the atmosphere. They want you focused on their pipes, while the Incas were focused on the sky. When you combine this water system with the copper coil, you are creating a biological battery that is self-powered and self-hydrated. You are exiting their system and entering a natural one.
Not all stones are created equal. In the eyes of a modern contractor, a rock is just a rock, a heavy, useless object to be cleared away. But in the eyes of an Incan engineer, a stone is a thermal battery. It is a vessel that stores the cold of the night and uses it to defeat the heat of the day. To build an effective air well, you must understand thermal inertia. The best stones for this system are high-density, dark-colored rocks, basalt, granite, or heavy river stones. These materials are the masters of cold retention. They have a massive internal volume that can hold on to the freezing temperatures of the night well into the afternoon sun. On the other hand, porous stones like limestone or pumice are less effective. They breathe too much. They lose their charge too quickly. To harvest the invisible ocean, we need stones that act like a deep freeze, standing firm against the rising temperature. But the material is only half the battle. The real magic happens in the geometry. We aren't just piling rocks into a heap. We are building a bellows, a natural lung. The ancients built these structures in a specific shape, a cairn with a hollow core. The structure must be porous on the outside, but dense on the inside. This creates what is known as the Venturi Effect. As the wind hits the side of your harvester, it is forced through the small gaps between the rocks. As the air moves through these tight spaces, it accelerates, and as it accelerates, its pressure drops, and it cools down even further. Inside the harvester, we create a cold core. We stack the largest, densest stones at the base and in the center. Around them, we stack smaller stones to create thousands of square feet of surface area. A pile of stones just 3 feet tall can have the surface area of a small house. Every square inch of that cold stone surface is a landing pad for water molecules. When the warm morning air is pulled into the gaps of your harvester, it hits the cold core. It is a thermal shock. The air collapses. It turns from a gas into a liquid. Because we build this on a slight incline or with a collection basin at the bottom, those millions of tiny microdrops begin to merge. They follow the pull of gravity, trickling down through the dark, cool interior of the stones, protected from the sun, until they gather into a steady, rhythmic drip. This is Incan physics. They understood that the Earth is a giant heat exchanger. By simply rearranging the stones already present on the land, they created a fountain from nothing. Now, let's move from the physics to the physical. To build an Incan air well that actually works, you cannot just throw rocks into a pile and hope for the best. You must act as an architect of the atmosphere. The first step is location scouting. You are looking for the breath of the land. Water doesn't just appear, it is carried by moving air. You want to place your harvester in a spot that receives a steady breeze, particularly the cool air that flows down from hills or through valleys in the early morning. Avoid placing it in a stagnant corner where the air cannot circulate. We need the air to be pushed into the stone core. Step 2 is the foundation. In the high Andes, the Incas often dug a shallow pit about 1 foot deep and lined it with non-porous clay or a simple stone basin. This serves 2 purposes. First, the earth acts as an insulator, keeping the base of your stone pile significantly cooler than the surface.
Second, it creates a collection point. If you build your harvester directly on dry, thirsty soil, the earth will drink the water before you do. You need a floor that says no to the soil and yes to your collection bucket. Step 3 is the internal core. Start with your largest, heaviest boulders. These are your anchors. Arrange them in a circle, leaving a hollow space in the very center. Think of it as a cold chimney. This hollow center is crucial. It creates a pressure differential that pulls air downward as it cools. As you stack, ensure that the gaps between the large stones are clear. Do not fill them with dirt or sand. We want the air to have a labyrinth to move through, not a wall to hit. Step 4 is the surface layer. As you move outward and upward, use smaller and smaller stones. This increases your surface area exponentially. By the time you reach the outer skin of the harvester, you should be using stones the size of a fist or a grapefruit. This outer layer acts as a heat shield for the cold core inside. It takes the brunt of the sun's energy, while the massive stones inside remain chilled from the night before. The final touch is the collection pipe, a simple bamboo reed or a small stone channel leading from the center of the base out to your garden bed. If you have done this correctly, you will see the first signs of moisture within the first 48 hours. You are not building a monument, you are building a biological lung that breathes in vapor and breathes out life.
The most common question I get is, how much water can a pile of rocks actually produce? The answer depends on your environment, but the physics never fails. In a moderate humidity environment, a well-constructed air well the size of a large bush can produce anywhere from 2 to 5 gallons of pure, distilled water every single night. But it's not just about the volume, it's about the timing. This water is delivered exactly when the plants need it most, at dawn, before the sun begins to evaporate the surface moisture. While your neighbors are dragging hoses and wasting city-treated water that is full of chlorine and fluoride, your garden is being hydrated by the purest form of water on the planet. This is structured water, created by the natural friction of air against stone. To see the miracle, you have to wake up at 4 a.m. Look into the dark recesses of the stone pile. You will see the stones glistening. They look like they are weeping. This is the moment of the great conversion. The air has reached its limit, and the stones have claimed their prize. If you want to scale this, you don't build one giant pyramid, you build a network. In the ancient world, they used field arrays, small stone harvesters placed every 20 feet throughout a vineyard or a crop field. This creates a microclimate. Each harvester cools the air around it, increasing the humidity of the entire field. It becomes a self-reinforcing loop of hydration. This is how the desert becomes an oasis. It's not through massive, multi-billion-dollar desalination plants. It's through the decentralized intelligence of thousands of small, zero-cost stone harvesters. It is the ultimate useless infrastructure that makes the entire utility cartel irrelevant.
We are standing at a crossroads in human history. One path leads to total dependence, a world where you pay for your air, your heat, your seeds, and your water. A world where you are a renter of your own life. The other path leads to sovereignty. Sovereignty isn't about having $1 million. It's about having a system that doesn't need $1 million to function. When you coiled that $1 copper wire and drove it into the earth, you claimed your energy. When you stacked these stones to harvest the air, you claimed your hydration. The system wants you to think that survival is complicated. They want you to think it requires a PhD and a massive bank account. But the Incas proved that survival is simply a matter of observing the laws of nature and applying them with patience. Water is the blood of the earth, and as long as someone else controls the flow of that blood, they control you. By building an air well, you are cutting the umbilical cord. You are saying that my garden will grow whether the grid is up or down. My family will drink whether the cartel likes it or not. But there is one final piece to this puzzle. We have the energy from the copper, we have the water from the stones, now we need the life force. In the next video, I am going to show you how to take the waste of the earth and turn it into black gold, using a 100-year-old fermentation secret that makes chemical fertilizers look like poison. We are rebuilding the world, one forgotten system at a time. Go outside, find your stones, listen to the wind, and start harvesting the invisible ocean. I'll see you in the next one.